Hi, this is Civil War author Scott Mingus speaking to you from York, Pennsylvania. I want to talk to you tonight about the Civil War in Southwestern York County, in the Hanover, Spring Grove area in particular. So I'm going to start my slides now and we'll talk through those. Okay, topic tonight is Southwestern York County and the Civil War. What we want to do is chat about the politics and then particularly the things that happened here in Southwestern York County. Now, this area was a Democratic stronghold during the mid-19th century. Codorus, Hanover, townships, Heidelberg, Jackson, places like that, Manheim, etc., were very heavily Democrat. In fact, Manheim Township gave 174 votes to one of Lincoln's opponents and only 2 votes to President Lincoln. Just give you an idea, the closer you were to Maryland, of course, the more likely it was that you were a Democrat that would support the Vice President of the United States, John C. Breckinridge, in the election. The largest town in Southwestern York County was Hanover. It was a town of about 1,630 residents. No other town or village in Southwestern York County was anywhere close to that size. Most of the villages were a few dozen people, up to maybe a few hundred people in some cases. But by and large, it's a very, very rural area. Now, the town of Hanover itself was a Republican bastion, where the rest of the the farmers in particular, were mostly Democrats, just to give an idea of what was happening politically in this area. Hanover was the home of a very important railroad and road network that served southwestern York County and southeastern Adams County, as well as Maryland. You can see roads that go to Baltimore and Frederick, Maryland. You've got today's Route 116 that ran here to York. And of course, you had other routes that ran to Abbottstown, Carlisle, and of course to Gettysburg. And you had railroads that came in as well. Hanover was one of the largest railroad towns in the region. In fact, multiple lines came in there. Railroad from Littlestown, the railroad that came in from Hanover Junction, roughly 9 miles to the east, and the railroad came from Gettysburg. So all 3 of these lines converged in on the north side of Hanover. The local railroad was the Hanover Branch Railroad. This happens to be the station in Hanover, one of the trains from the HBRR, a relatively small regional railroad that again served Hanover and Gettysburg, Hanover Junction area. The largest newspaper in southwestern York County during the Civil War was the Hanover Spectator, owned by a woman, Maria Leader, a widow lady, and her daughter was one of the writers for this. They competed with the German language newspaper, which tended to be more popular in the countryside than it was in the town. Now, war begins in April of 1861, sorry. And there were rumors that some pro-secessionist groups from Baltimore County were going to come into southwestern York County, and we're actually going to raid Hanover. And throughout southwestern York County, they call it the local militia, which included men from a number of different townships in the area, and they hustled to Hanover to try to protect the area. Well, President Lincoln calls for 75,000 volunteers to serve for 90 days to put out the rebellion. And response is pretty strong in southwestern York County, despite the fact that most men had not voted for Lincoln. They still joined the Army. 16th Pennsylvania, for example, organized in April and May of 1861, Captain Cyrus Diller and First Lieutenant Henry Morningstar. These guys are going to fight until, or if you serve until July when the 90 days runs out. A lot of these men are now going to join the new 3-year regiments that Lincoln called for, following the stunning defeat at the first battle of Bull Run. These 3-year regiments, including Company D of the 76th Pennsylvania, which was organized again from mostly men from southwestern York County and southeastern Adams County. There's also other regiments that throughout the Civil War are going to be raised in southwestern York County, including the 130th Pennsylvania. Now, for the men from southwestern York County at the start of the war, as they enlist, the average soldier is 24 years old. He's single, he's a skilled laborer or a farmer, is now worth about 343 bucks. The officers were much older, 31 years old on the average, and they were worth a lot more money as well, $1,760, according to research by my friend, Dr. Mark Snell. Now, life on the home front in 1861 and 1862 wasn't too bad. Very few York Countyans had fought in battles. In fact, not until September of 1862 that the first York Countyan die in combat, 130th Pennsylvania at the Battle of Antietam. There's a lot of recruiting efforts over that 18-month period, particularly with recruiting offices in Hanover and Nashville, just outside of Spring Grove, and in Thomasville. Those were the three particular areas where you could go and sign up for the Army. Now, there's all kinds of rumors during this period of time that the Confederates are going to raid southwestern York County again, but nothing really happens. In fact, the biggest excitement happens near Spring Grove in Jackson Township, when a huge farm owned by a guy named David Martin, off today's Martin Road, of course, burned. 12 or 13 of his buildings are destroyed. Huge fire. He also loses some horses and some cows and other forms of livestock. And it turned out it was because somebody, maybe Mr. Martin or someone, was smoking a cigar in one of the barns, and that, of course, lit the whole thing on fire. So that was the biggest source of excitement until 1862, late 1862, when news finally arrives of the fighting at Antietam and the first York County soldiers that die. But still, by the summer of 1863, southwestern York County is pretty insulated from the war. Not much going on. This is the farmers market in downtown Hanover on the square. Many farmers from throughout southwestern York County, southeastern Adams County would have been quite familiar with this structure during the war years, because this is where a lot of them bought and sold their produce and hams and livestock, chickens, etc., here in the Hanover market. Well, someone else is thinking about the markets of Pennsylvania, in particular the fields and grain, livestock of Pennsylvania, and the horse flesh, and that's Robert E. Lee. He's got a lot of reasons to come to Pennsylvania, including it's a giant supply raid, but most importantly, he needs to beat the Yankees on northern soil, which he thinks will accelerate the cries for peace and perhaps bring the Civil War to a close. On June 3rd, 1863, Robert E. Lee and most of the Army of Northern Virginia are in the vicinity of Fredericksburg, Virginia. A third of the men are going to leave over the first week of the Gettysburg Campaign, followed by Lee and a second third of the men as things progress. Now we're going to focus our attention on Elijah White. He's the 35th Battalion, Virginia Cavalry. He's part of Joe Borley's division, is temporarily assigned during the Gettysburg Campaign to a brigade under John B. Gordon. Elijah White's going to be a key figure that southwestern York Countyans are going to come to hear the name of for the next few days. This is Elijah White, Elijah Veers White. He's from Poolesville, Maryland. He's actually educated in the North. He goes to colleges and schools in New York. He graduates from Granville College in Ohio. Still thoroughly Southern in its beliefs. He goes out to Kansas and fights in bloody Kansas against abolitionist Northerners. Settles in Leesburg, Virginia. He's 30 years old at the time of the Gettysburg Campaign. He's married, he's got a kid. And Confederate Lieutenant General A.P. Hill actually calls Lieutenant Colonel Elijah White a trump and one of the best cavalry officers we have. He thinks he's better than Jeb Stuart, thinks he's better than a lot of other cavalry officers, although this guy is only a lieutenant colonel and not a general, unlike Stuart and some of the others. This is one of the few pictures known of the 35th Battalion's officers. Most of these men are going to come to southwestern York County, as we'll find out. On June 9th, they're fighting at the Brattle Brandy Station. 2 of the officers are going to be shot, and 90 of the men in the 35th Battalion. So Lieutenant Colonel White will regroup, reorganize, promote a few new officers, add some new men. He's roughly 250 men as he starts marching into Pennsylvania. Now, the Union Army is not unsure where the Confederates are coming. They're going to assign a veteran general to lead the defenses of the Susquehanna River region. And on June 15th through the 18th, the Confederate cavalry is going to raid Franklin County. Now they're going to leave and head back into Maryland. And a lot of the folks in Adams and York County are pretty relieved, thinking this is all over. But refugees are going to start to clog the roads into York County, particularly into Western York County as they head east towards Wrightsville and the bridge. President Lincoln calls out 100,000 militiamen, of which 50,000 are supposed to serve in Pennsylvania under the governor, Andrew Gregg Curtin's call. However, only 7,000 guys show up, so nowhere close to the 50,000 that have been requested. But there are men from Southwestern York County that do listen to Lincoln's call, and they do join the state militia. In fact, 75 guys from Southwestern York County, a few guys from Maryland. They show up in Harrisburg and show up in Hanover and end up shipping to Harrisburg, where they're going to join one of the 7 new regiments of state militia that are being formed, and they're training at Camp Curtin. Camp Curtin on the north side of Harrisburg becomes the largest Civil War recruiting and training site during this part of the Civil War. Now, the key is to understanding the Confederate strategy in the Gettysburg Campaign and General Curtin and Governor Curtin and General Couch's response is to understand the geography. Here's Jefferson, Glen Rock, Hanover Junction, Hanover, where the railroad comes and meets at Hanover Junction. The United States is going to station troops at the spots marked with a star. That's a river crossing at Bainbridge and York Haven, the bridge at Wrightsville, the bridges at Harrisburg, the railroad interchange at Hanover Junction, and the railroad head at Gettysburg. On June 22nd through the 25th, the Confederates come back into Pennsylvania. This time they're coming to stay, bringing infantry and artillery and tens of thousands of men into the Commonwealth. Major General Jubal Anderson Early, a Virginian, is going to lead about 6,600 men towards York County. His goal is to seize York, destroy the Northern Central Railway, destroy Hanover Junction interchange, go grab the bridge over at Hanover Junction, enter into Lancaster County. At least that's what he wants to do. His actual orders are to burn the bridge at Wrightsville, but he decides to capture it because the militia, he finds out, is so, quote unquote, utterly inefficient. Now, on Friday, June 26th, after 1.3 inches of rain have fallen, it's a horrific, horrific day. Raw, biting, rainy, cold, gray, dreary. And the Confederates start moving towards the 2 sets of bridges, the 2 bridges at Harrisburg that you're going to get to. You got to go through Carlisle and Mechanicsburg to get there, and the single bridge at Wrightsville, which means you got to go through Gettysburg, Western York County, and York to reach Wrightsville to get that bridge. Friday afternoon, Jubal Early takes Gettysburg, chases off the Pennsylvania State Militia, which includes, again, those 75 guys from Southwestern York County. They're going to clear the roads west of Gettysburg. These are 2 of the monuments, by the way, to the 26th Pennsylvania Volunteer Militia, again, containing the men from Southwestern York County. The rebels are going to ride into Gettysburg, take the town about 2 p.m. on Friday, June 26th. North of town, 3.5 miles northeast of Gettysburg, along the Goldenville Road, they're going to capture a large number of men, 175 guys, including several of the guys from Southwestern York County, including the captain of the Company I from Southwestern York County, Captain John S. Forrest from Hanover, and you see a number of other guys from the region that are captured by the rebels. Jubal Early is going to take Gettysburg. You can see the massive mud and rain puddles from the huge rainstorm. This is from York County artist Bradley Schnell. Saturday, June 27th, it's now Southwestern York County's turn for the Confederates to arrive. It's a gray, ugly morning in Hanover, 10 a.m. The rebels ride into McSherrystown and they force a local guy to become their guide. Reverend Julius Kurtz rides into Hanover with a warning the rebels are coming, and not long after that, indeed, the Confederates arrive in Southwestern York County. Elijah White, 35th Battalion Virginia Cavalry, same guy that has raided Gettysburg first, now comes to Hanover. He's going to capture the railroad station. His men are going to come into downtown Hanover, into the square where Reverend William K. Zeber and Reverend Kurtz are there to meet them and discuss the peaceful occupation of Hanover. After about an hour of raiding the stores, getting their shoes or the horseshoes reshod, the rebels ride out in Hanover. They're going to ride all over southwestern York County. As you can see on this map, they're going to head in two groups through following Route 116 up to Porter's Sidling. They're going to head over to Jefferson, while another group's going to follow the back roads out of Hanover. And the goal is to get to Hanover Junction, which they do, and they're going to end up taking Hanover Junction. Now, throughout this region, there are a number of farmers that have bought for $1 a bogus counterfeit membership card to the Knights of Golden Circle from a group of conmen in New York City who have promised these farmers that if they show the Confederates these bogus tickets, they cry peace, peace, secret passwords supposedly, and they make some strange hand gestures. The Confederates will know they're friends and they won't rob them of their horses and their cattle and their supplies. Turns out, again, this is all counterfeit from a group of con men. The farmers don't know anything about this. Confederates most certainly don't know anything about this. And as Jubal Early says, the guys, people who bought these mysteries have been badly sold. Private Joseph Trundle from the 35th Battalion Virginia Cavalry writes about this, sent a letter back home, gave the old Dutch in Pennsylvania fits. Our army left a mark everywhere it went. Horses, cattle, sheep, hogs, chickens, spring houses suffered alike. They cried peace, peace most beautifully wherever we went. And now with plenty of horses and plenty of supplies, the 35th Battalion Virginia Cavalry rides into Hanover Junction. This is what the junction would have looked like in roughly in 1863. This is an 1860 map. There's the railroad interchange of the Northern Central and the Hanover branch. There's the telegraph station. There's a turntable there, covered bridge nearby, and the Confederates burning everything except the station and the nearby hotel. They chase off the 20th Pennsylvania Volunteer Militia, 3 companies of men that are guarding the area, just easily repulse them. And they're going to ride to Spring Forge, now known as Spring Grove. They're going to camp on the John Weist farm. The Weist farmhouse is still there on the traffic circle in Spring Grove. The barn is now roughly where Kenny's and a lot of the shopping center now sits, where the old barn was. So that's where the 35th Battalion, Elijah White's men, are going to camp. In fact, White's brother, quartermaster of the battalion, is going to have Mr. Weist supply oats from his supply to feed the Confederate cavalry horses. Now, there's plenty of scares throughout Jackson and Codorus townships, so the rebels are going to go door to door knocking and take all the young men and bring them into Confederate service. That doesn't happen, but they steal all the horses in the area, including off Roth Church Road, Reverend Samuel Roth. They take his horse. During that point in time, in just north of Nashville and Spring Grove, a place called Farmers, Pennsylvania, in Paradise Township, John B. Gordon, the Confederate general, is going to accept the surrender of York. On Sunday, June 28th, the rebels are going to ride into downtown York. They're going to go on to Wrightsville. The state militia is going to have the civilians burn the bridge at Wrightsville. So on the 29th, the Confederates can't cross the river. But the Union Army is starting to arrive in Gettysburg, and the Confederates are going to start recalling, Robert E. Lee is going to start recalling his men towards Heidlersburg, Cashtown, Gettysburg area in preparation for a potential battle. On Tuesday, June 30th, the Confederates are going to concentrate in that area, but Southwestern York County gets another nasty surprise when Jeb Stuart arrives, fights a battle in Hanover much of the day on June 30th. Notable for 2 things. One, Jeb Stuart and his aide have to jump over their horses over a ditch, which the Union pursuers can't cross. Otherwise, Jeb Stuart's career may have ended in Hanover, Pennsylvania. And at the same time, the career starts of the boy general, George Armstrong Custer, newly promoted from a line officer. This is Custer's first battle at Hanover as a brigadier general in charge of troops from Michigan, and he does pretty well in his first action. The Confederates are going to leave and head towards York, riding towards Jefferson, York, New Salem area. They're going to raid various mills, various properties. So it takes 6 hours for the Confederates to fully cross northwestern or southwestern York County. On July 1st, Stuart's men are now in northwestern York County as they head from Dover on to Carlisle while the Battle of Gettysburg rages. And our friends from Elijah White and 35th Battalion, Virginia Cavalry are now at the Battle of Gettysburg. Fast forward to November of 1863 at Hanover Junction. President Abraham Lincoln changes trains at Hanover Junction. He may or may not have been photographed at Hanover Junction. That's certainly debatable whether this image really shows him or perhaps A.W. Eichelberger, the president of the Hanover Branch Railroad, for which the Eichelberger Performing Arts Center in Hanover is named. Some people believe it's Lincoln, most people do not. But we do know Lincoln is in Hanover Junction. And he goes to Hanover and makes a very brief address, the Hanover Address, which none of us memorized in school, the day before he delivers the Gettysburg Address, which we did memorize back in those days. This plaque in Hanover talks about Hanover, the very brief stop of Lincoln. This is the only time in his life Lincoln will address the residents of York County. In 1864, as the war dragging on, Southern York County is very upset with the Lincoln administration for allowing the Confederates to run wild in the region without an adequate defense. And York County votes overwhelmingly against Abraham Lincoln by almost a 2-to-1 margin in 1864, despite the fact Lincoln easily carries the United States and carries the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And you can again see the vote. North Codorus, 399 for McClellan, only 56 for President Lincoln. Manheim Township, 216 for McClellan, only 8 people voting for Abraham Lincoln. So you can just see the hostility towards Lincoln still in southwestern York County. 1865, of course, Lee is going to surrender to U.S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, ending the Civil War. Brings rejoicing throughout southern York County, but within a matter of days, that joy turns to grief when news arrives that President Lincoln has been assassinated, shot on April 14th, Good Friday, at Ford's Theater, dying on the morning of Saturday, April 15th. His funeral train is going to come through southern York County on the Northern Central Railway from Baltimore on the late afternoon of April 21st. And residents of South Central and Southwestern York County line the railroad tracks hat in hand in the mourning clothes to show their respect for the fallen president, somebody they did not support with their votes or their political views during the Civil War, but they respect the office. Well, most people did. John Gimmel in Round Hill near Crossroads in South Central York County writes, the serfs Lincoln right should have been shot long ago. So that's the presentation tonight I want to give for the Spring Grove Area Historical Preservation Society. I want to thank everybody for your time and attention. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Scott Mingus, SCOTTMINGUS @yahoo.com. So with that, I appreciate your attendance. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Okay, so that has been our presentation on Southwestern York County. Again, if you're interested in more of these presentations, feel free to look up my name, Scott Mingus, on YouTube. I have a number of these presentations here. Thanks again. Have a great day. Bye, folks.